Okay, folks, I just got back from work today. It was kind of an awkward, comfortable day in some ways, especially interacting with some people in particular, but I did get through the day, um, and I'm kind of recovering from the slip up, so to speak, the major slip up, but and try and just like sort of, quote unquote, sleep it off and keep myself away from sort of looking up questionable material or sort of skirting the edge, so to speak. um, but I think one thing that I've concluded I'm gonna do basically is like, in order to sort of have a fair balanced sort of standard, um, I'll say that basically or essentially if I have three major slip ups, that's the equivalent of a relapse. And so I'm on the second one right now, and if I have one more of those, then it's like, okay, I'm resetting the counter. Which means if I can push through another month, a little over a month, close to like a month and a half, I'll have reached that initial, year mark, without having what, I'm terming as a relapse. Um, Assuming I get to that point and I do have a relapse, or um, even if I don't, like I'll sort of set the counter back to zero for sort of the next stage, which is going to be like a no slip ups, no major slip ups, sort of thing, where I'll basically um, consider a relapse at that point to be, it could be one, it could be two major slip ups, and I'll sort of work from there because I wanna like hold myself to certain standards, but I also don't want to be like just bearing down on myself to the extent that I sort of burn out or I give up. It's kind of like if I were to start working out again, which is the plan in the near future. Um, we'll see if we'll see if I actually follow through on that, but um, it'd be like if I were to start working out again, which honestly I'm just gonna be doing swimming because it's a full body workout. Um, Basically zero contact or zero pressure on your knees and joints and that sort of thing. But if I were to be starting out like that, I'm not going to be going like, oh, I'm gonna go swimming 5, 6, 7 days a week, and I'm gonna be doing like 3 hours each time. I'll have to be like, nah, we're gonna go 1 day a week, and maybe that might be 1 or 2 hours of swimming. We're gonna like ease ourselves into it, so to speak. And it's the same thing with Nofap. I built myself up to a certain extent over these last several years where, I can close in on a year without going into any, pornographic sites, or literally like engaging in the act. But as it's been clear, at least at this point, I still have sort of a vulnerability to skirting the edge and trying to sort of cheat the system, if you will. And oh well, I didn't literally go to a site, or I wasn't watching anything, but I was listening to some audio which I found on XYZ social media site, and I wasn't literally fapping, but I was, those sorts of things. Like that's the deepest that it gets. I don't literally like push over the edge. And even though as as evidenced by having major slip ups, I mean, it does cause the same physical reaction, or lesser form. Like, obviously, like, I'm not like, if I had gone down like a inarguable relapse, I know I would have binged. I would have gone through like sites. I would have been knocked out. I would not have been able to, like, except by the force of habit, get up and get to work. And it would have been like, it would have been a way, way worse day than it was today. I mean, it would have been terrible. It wouldn't have been like, oh, like I could have done X, Y, Z better or something. It would have been like, I would have been completely out of it, and I would have been like going over the line in a lot of ways. Because today, like for instance, this is something that I noticed when I have a slip up or a major slip up or I relapse. I get extremely uncomfortable around people. Like it's that whole classic social anxiety problem. And I start sort of acting out my anxiety where it's kind of like I'm feeling uncomfortable. So therefore, I start joking around with people, but I do it in a way that like it might make them feel either annoyed or uncomfortable or whatever the case may be. It's kind of like I'm trying to project my discomfort onto other people. And that's definitely not something that I should be doing, especially not in a professional environment. Nothing that's per se like HR worthy, because obviously I kind of pick up on the fact that I'm doing that, and then I go, oh wait, no, we're not doing this anymore. Yeah, I won't say it out loud, but I'll kind of like think to myself, okay, like, yeah, we got work to do. Okay, let's go do that work. Let's get this stuff done, or whatever the case may be. Especially since I'm putting in all these hours of overtime, and really trying to show my dedication to the job and the work we do and that sort of thing. But I see the effect of it, the effects of this, and like I said, I want to hold myself to certain standards, but I don't want to like push myself to an extreme. Because, like for instance, it's sort of like I used to use terms like easy mode versus hard mode. Sometimes I want to still use those terms, but like back in 2017, and the reason I would use those terms is because, again, I didn't want to like push myself so friggin' hard that I was always this sort of like, roller coaster of like, yeah, I got through so many days, and then, oh my god, I relapsed. I'm such a worthless POS, beating myself up and make myself feel like, like dirt, that sort of thing, because I would have just, given up 100%. Like for instance, 2017 when I had, what up until this point has been what was my, I guess it was my previous longest streak. I mean, I've had some 6-month streaks since then, but I got to like 6.5 months on what I termed as hard mode, and then 8.5 months on what I termed as easy mode. But I was able to do that partially by sort of weaning myself over things. Like I went through 2 months of never viewing any like pornographic content whatsoever, and then I think I allowed myself every now and again to view it, but I would like obviously like not engage in the actual act of fapping, and I would just kind of sit there and watch that and sort of like dull my response to the viewing of the content, and it just like it started sort of losing its hold over me or power over me, and I was just kind of like, okay, like why am I watching this? Like like if I said I'm not gonna go fap, I'm not doing that. I'm just like looking at this. It's like, okay, like why am I watching this? What's up with this? Like that sort of thing, and kind of being able to detach myself from it and the material and the process and the sort of situation and sort of look at it in that sort of detached sense. And for some people they'd be like, oh man, you relapsed, that's it, you're done, like you gotta reset the counter. But like I found that I was able to sort of weaken its hold on me enough that I was able to make some serious progress and actually like gain a lot of insight into its effects and the whys and the hows and all that kind of stuff. And I'm trying to apply that sort of same thing here, where it's like I'll go, okay, this is a slip up or it's a major slip up. Like a slip up would be like viewing or using P subs, let's say, substitution material. It's not literal pornography in the sense of not going to a website or some imagery or something of that nature, but it might be risque stuff, or it might be skirting the edge, if you will. Like I don't want to sort of throw literal terms out there because it might trigger some folks, but um, you can kind of look up on probably the Nofap website, like their list of peace subs, and there's stuff out there even further that's more in the direction of will be considered strictly speaking pornography that can have a similar effect. Things that you can ironically enough find on a lot of these social media websites that I'm not going to name names, but they basically claim to have these high standards of censorship or filtration, or we make sure that we only have um what do you call it, like, I don't want to say high quality, but like high standards as to what we allow to be on our platform, because we really care about the well-being of our customer base or whatever, but then there's stuff that gets by and it's just like how is this even on here if you guys claim to be you guys and gals, you folks, that's use a sort of a gender neutral expression, you folks seem to care about all these things, but apparently like pornographic content getting onto your sites, which negatively impacts a lot of people, primarily or secondarily or tertiarily, if that's even a word. Um, speaking like that stuff can get through like in some form or another, where it's just like I don't care they're putting music in this and it's an audio sample, like that's a porn sub, or it's pornographic or porn-ish in nature. Like, how are you letting this stuff get through? If I mean, unless it's a matter of not having enough people who can devote themselves to going through all the content, or it's they got to modify the algorithm, they got to figure out a way to write it so that they can filter that stuff out. But um I have these terms like slip up, major slip up, which relates to that sort of stuff, so that I can look at this in a more nuanced manner by degrees. Because like I've experienced the effects of whether it's edging or it's using P subs or so, and I've also experienced the effects of a inarguable full bore all the way relapse, and then also binging. I've seen it. It's in degrees. It's in terms of degrees, and it's kind of like I could engage in the use of P subs, and yeah, it'll affect me. Like I will get that initial high, then I'll get the feeling, the crash, and just feeling like crap, but I can more easily bounce back from that. I could probably even sleep that off in a day or two, you know. But if it's sort of like, relapsing like all the way, like that could take me a month to get back, because, I may start back on some streak within a few days, and then it's like I go through week and a half, 2 weeks, and then I relapse, and it's like, take me another week or two to really get on a streak, and then it's like, okay, now I can go through 2 months or 3 months or 4 months, and then maybe I'll relapse at that point, and then it's like, okay, now I'm gonna go for 6 months, and I get through that, and then that sort of thing. And I've seen that it's by degrees that it affects me, and I'm pretty sure there's probably other people's experience as well, that it really depends upon how far down the rabbit hole you went. And so it's kind of like, if you're gonna get yourself out of that rabbit hole, it'd be great if you could, like, put on some jetpacks and just blast out of there and just take off, and reach escape velocity and just get out of there like that. Some people can do that, but I think for most of us, it's a matter of like climbing up level by level. Then occasionally, sort of, you got your foothold, you got your toeholds, and you gotta like stop and take a breather and hope you don't slip or fall back down to where anywhere near where you were at, and sort of climb your way out. And that's kind of what I've been doing. I don't know how close I am to being fully out of this, but I'm kind of taking that approach. And let's just assume that I get to a year without another, major slip up, which means I'm going to have to do my damnedest, especially in these next few days, just to like not be going back down that rabbit hole. Because like I said, if I have one more of those, like I'm just going to have to be honest with myself and be like, no, we're resetting the counter. I know, we got really close, and it was really, it was awesome to get past 300 days and have, be within a month of getting to that year mark and da. But, we got to reset the counter, and I don't want to do that. If I'm going to reset the counter, then I want it to be after I've gone through a year. And then I can be like, okay, yeah, I relapsed, but hey, I pushed through a year, I got through that, and I had 2 major slip-ups and, a bunch of minor slip-ups, that sort of thing. But hey, I didn't full bore, all the way relapse and then binge, for a year. Like I did, and I can go look at it and go like, where was I a year ago? Not just in terms of Nofap, but, financially speaking, or, in terms of like my career, my employment situation, or, all those sorts of things. Like I could look at then just sort of a year in review, and that'd be a great feeling to get to. Especially with, when it comes to like spiritually speaking, like I'm sort of pursuing this path with regards to, Thelema and the Order of the Silver Star, and a lot of it ties in with, it relates to this thing called the Bremelin operation. And if you go strictly by the newer translation, which is, it claims to be based off this, the oldest extant German, manuscript, it calls for a 1.5 year long retreat. And one of the things that you have to do when you're doing this retreat in order to attain what's called knowledge and conversation of your holy guardian angel, which, it's a term for a thing or an experience, which, you can find in multiple spiritual traditions. But one of the things that you have to do is engage in the strictest celibacy ever. Like, I don't know if it even like allows for you to be having sex with your spouse if you're married, because we're talking about like a text that was originally written back in like the 13 or 1400s or even earlier. When if you're having sex, it was with your spouse, member of the opposite sex, that sort of thing. And I'd have to go back and like, well, I could probably, I had the S.L. McGregor Mathers translation, but I would have to go and read this new translation and like sort of pick my way through it again and see that, because I don't know if they even allow for that, or if it's like, oh, once a month, or only if it's for, the creation of, the conception of children, or, if it's just as part of sort of like, hey, the fact that you guys are married, and it's, maintaining the relationship sort of thing, as a function of that, or out of just desire for your spouse, or, I don't know if they make allowances for that, but from what I understand, it's the strictest form of celibacy you can imagine. Not just physically, which, is one thing in and of itself, but, other ways, because we're talking about like a 1.5 year of fasting, eating certain foods, not eating certain foods, a lot of sleep deprivation, a lot of prayer and meditation, and, repentance and reflection and studying of, the scripture of your religion, and, spiritual path, and sort of taking your whole entire life into account, and not being distracted by thoughts of, sexual desire, or, emotions and such that do not relate to the process, and going through this sort of grand cleansing of over a 1.5 year, at the end of which, having sort of attained that sort of spiritual cleanliness and stature, you're supposed to almost have opened sort of a gateway or a door through which your holy guardian angel, your higher self, the intermediary, between you and the divine, however you conceptualize of that, will sort of, let me see if I can turn it back on, will, show up and, sort of open even further doors of understanding for you and help you sort of like exercise the forces of evil or discord or, what have you, whatever you're going to call them, from your life, from your existence, and if one is to accomplish that, I mean, it's sort of like you have to do Nofap without calling it Nofap, It's like a function of it or an aspect of it, and it's something that, like, if you were to go back all the way to when this text was written, it was like they were doing Nofap before it was called Nofap, So that from a time when fapping itself was like, a major sin, a major crime. And there was no real questioning of it per se by the vast majority of people. It was like if they did it, they did it, but they didn't like view it as, some pastime or some activity you could just do. It was like, no, I did commit a sin. I did this, and I have to repent for it. I have to do penance for it. I have to make things right, sort of a deal. And for me, doing Nofap, for one thing, is kind of a preparation for that. Like, I'm kind of going through this sort of cleansing now, so that assuming the day should come when I'm able to actually sit down and go through this sort of like retreat from the world where, first there is like interacting with people, keeping, your actions fair and good and all that, gradually sort of withdrawing, that second phase, withdrawing even further, maybe to the place of habitation you're living in. Then like the third phase is like completely cut off from the world, completely absorbed in the process, that sort of thing. Like, I'm trying to sort of condition myself to the point that it'll be easy, or easier, and it's like an aspect of it that, you don't want to create that sort of spiritual heat from the act and the desire and so on. And, I want it to be easy for me at that point. I don't want to be someone who's addicted to fapping and, pornography and all that kind of stuff. At the same time, have got myself to a point financially, educationally, etc., where like I feel like I can go and do that process and like cross that threshold and be done with it, and it won't happen if I don't take care of this, because this is one of those things where like maybe it's something that's more of a deal, you being a man, maybe not, I don't know, you tell me, but it seems like something that carries a lot of weight for me as a guy. And again, when it comes to some of these other things I want to do, it's like it's a lead up to it, it's part of it, it's almost like having this huge problem and I'm having to sort of break it down to smaller components and learn this skill, learn that skill, etc., so that I can put all these skills together to be able to accomplish this grand overarching goal. But anyways, I think that's pretty much it for me to right now. But I'm gonna try and get some food from somewhere and then just nod off and go to sleep, because I was really, really tired today. I found it really hard to sleep last night after that whole, slip up. Somehow I got a few hours. Somehow I got up and I got to work, on time, and I was able to get in the lab and get some work done. But and it was a real struggle, especially in the morning, and I don't want to repeat that tomorrow. So, anywho, I'll see you folks around. Thanks for watching and thanks for the support. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.